Salutations friends, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be another fragrance first impressions, and I'm really excited to try out this fragrance from House of Matriarch, Forbidden. I actually have only sampled one or two fragrances from them, and I've wanted to get my nose on more, so I was really excited to receive this. Thank you to LolaScents who sent it to me. You made my day when I got the samples. You're so sweet. Thank you so much. But I'm really excited to bring you a first impressions of this fragrance. So yeah, let's get into it. If you guys are unaware of how these videos work, I will always give you a little rundown in the beginning. My fragrance first impressions go like this. I have a fragrance that I have either never tried before or at least has never touched my skin. I might have smelled it on a strip or somebody else, but I don't know how it's going to perform on my skin. So what I do is I spritz it on my skin, I let it kind of settle on my skin for 15-20 seconds, and I give you my first impressions of the opening. Then I come back a little bit later in the day, about 20 to 30 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer depending on how long I feel like this fragrance needs to dry down, and I give you my first impressions of the dry down. Now, usually if I'm going to do a mini review of a fragrance, I like to wear it a few times before I give you any real kind of review on it when it comes down to performance and projection. So that will come next week after I've worn this a few times this week, which means at the end of this video I'm going to give you a mini review on last week's fragrance, which was from Annick Goutal Eau de Argent. So if you guys are ready for this video, let's go. Again, a big thank you to LolaScents for sending me this. It was so sweet of her. She sent me a little package with a whole bunch of samples. I was so excited to get it. You made my day. It was like a little surprise waiting in my PO box, so thank you. I'm going to link her channel below. I love her channel, guys. I've talked about it before. She is fantastic. Definitely check her out and subscribe if you haven't. And she did not send these samples for this shout out. I just think she deserves the shout out because she has really excellent content and I love her channel. So let's get into the video. Let's get into the notes first. Now, I was really excited for this one because lately, even though it's been really hot and humid, I've been looking for really vegetal, really almost like overtly ripe, almost umami savory fragrances, but I also like florals. And so I've been interested in Forbidden for a bit because it seems like it's kind of a mix between a blend of those two worlds, the beautiful, light, ultra feminine, effervescent white florals with almost like a dark vegetal kind of peppery spiced like damp world, and I kind of like the idea of those two coming together. The top notes of this are Absinthe, and I'm going to mispronounce most of these notes, so I'm really sorry. Top notes are Absinthe, Damiana, Lantana, and Cannabis. Heart notes are Tuberose, wild mushroom, and a pepper blend. And the base notes are a rubed herb tincture and precious woods. So normally when people talk about this fragrance in the opening, it's either really floral or it's really mushroomy, and both of those sound appealing to me, so I'm really excited to sample this. So let's go. I'm not going to get too much into House of Matriarch. I want to definitely explore the brand a little bit more and sample more of their products before I give you my thoughts on the brand, the history of the brand, things like that. But it's definitely a very interesting brand. It's something I'm really looking forward to. This is what their sample card looks like. It's really well, nicely put together. And I just like their sample, just looks, even their samples are really well presented. So yeah, so the only thing I have to say is this is definitely a little stick, not like a spritzer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply this on my skin, give it a few minutes, probably going to give this about 30 seconds to warm up, and we'll be right back. Okay, it's been like 20 seconds. I have it on both wrists, but I'm going to use this wrist just because it's easier. Let's see. The opening of this kind of reminds me of, but in no way smells the same, of bat. It kind of has this like really powerful opening to it, which is kind of moist and damp, and I think that's kind of like the wild mushroom, and the pepper is definitely here. But you get this, it's like a, and I always mispronounce it, like an indolic floral quality to it, which is like a really like crazy, almost heady, overripe flower. It's the best way I can describe it. From the tuberose, almost like, you know, like if you ever have a flower and it kind of starts to turn brown because it's a little bit old, but it's still got a really potent smell to it. It definitely reminds me of that very much, but you definitely get tuberose and pepper in this. And then everything else is kind of mixing together. I do get kind of like a mushroomy, almost umami, damp-like feel to this. Almost savory a little bit, which is really, really cool. So far I'm digging this, but I feel like the beauty in this will be in the dry down. So I feel like a fragrance like this doesn't need too long to dry down. So I'll probably be back in about half an hour. So I'll see you guys in a sec. Okay, I'm back. I definitely have some real feelings about this fragrance, and I think those feelings are like I'm absolutely in love with this. So far, this is everything that I was hoping it was going to be when I saw the notes. It is definitely a heavier fragrance. It is definitely a floral fragrance. It's definitely not a daytime or even a summertime fragrance, but there's something about this fragrance that's really mysterious and really sexy, like super sexy. The tuberose, as it dries down, definitely becomes more apparent, and I think when the white florals come more into the party and you get a little less of that kind of, and I'm saying umami, I know it's not an umami, but it's kind of like almost like a savory, earthy, vegetal kind of feeling to it, almost damp and moist. When that starts to kind of like go away but not completely disappear, I think is when this fragrance really shines. Because when you're looking at this fragrance and you're looking at all those notes, it's very conceptual. It's almost pushing the boundaries, but not completely. In the opening, it's a lot more harder to understand than in the dry down. And that's kind of like what I thought was going to happen. I thought all those kind of, not weird, but those conceptual, experimental notes that people are unfamiliar with, like roots and mushrooms, when they think of fragrances, specifically floral fragrances, you're not really thinking of that. But the idea that it's mixing really nicely with the tuberose. Tuberose to me can go varied ways. It can become very dated, it can become very honeyed sweet, or it can be very light and tropical. It really depends on what you add with it. And I feel like with the mushroom in this, it kind of gives it a little bit of a dated feel in a very positive way. Like a fragrance somebody you knew a long time ago wore and it was their signature, and every time you think of that person, you think of the fragrance, and it's positive and it's a beautiful fragrance, it's a heavy fragrance, it's a memorable fragrance, but you can't quite put your finger on what it is, mixed with somewhat of a honey-esque tuberose. And I think that the roots and that vegetal really is mixing well with the tuberose. I really like the way that they're coming together. Now, I don't think this fragrance is for everybody, and I'm definitely going to be wearing this with caution around my husband, because I think this is one he's going to not even be able to like at all. He hates mushrooms. He hates things like that. He likes more bright garden-esque scents, and he hates fragrances in general. So this is definitely a wear with caution. Probably not work appropriate, probably not even daytime appropriate. It might be a little bit too heavy for the daytime, specifically in summer. It might be more appropriate for the daytime come winter, depending if you live in colder climates, but this is definitely, to me, more of an evening scent, and I think it's a very sexy evening scent. I think this might be really interesting to wear on a date or wear someplace you want to make an impression, because it is really beautiful, but there is something kind of syrupy, sensual, and mysterious about this, which makes it very sexy. But I would definitely sample this first, because it is a little bit more on the conceptual side. It is a little bit definitely like, if you don't like the idea of mushrooms in your fragrance, to run away, because you definitely get mushrooms with this. But I feel like everything is well balanced and plays perfectly together, so I'm actually really excited to wear this more. Alright, so I'm digging it, but you know, I always like to give it more time to see how it projects, to see how it, if it is a linear fragrance, or if it's going to develop more on my skin, and maybe in another like hour it turns into something I need to scrub off. So at this point, I'm really enjoying it. It's definitely purchasing full bottle worthy, but I will wear it throughout this week and let you guys know what I think. But now time for my little mini review on last week's fragrance, which is Eau d'Argent from Annick Goutal. I was really excited to try this fragrance, and there was one note in there I was unsure if it was going to work on my skin, and at the dry down it was overtly synthetic, and that was the cypress. Now, after wearing this probably like 4 or 5 more times, the cypress on my skin needed way more time to develop and dry down. And then it became really, really nice. So with this fragrance on my skin, it started to be really beautiful and perfect around the 3-hour mark. And at that point, I feel like I discovered all of its mysteries, and it was a really beautiful lemon fragrance, and I did really enjoy it. Now, I don't even know if I mentioned on the video, but I know that my mom pulls more woody or woodsy-esque notes on her skin, way different than I do, and I was actually interested to see how this was going to play on her skin. And immediately on her skin, after about 20 minutes, it was how it was immediately what it was like on my skin after 3 hours. She passed that kind of like awkward puberty phase that the synthetic, not synthetic, but the cypress note was pulling. It kind of smelled really synthetic, and mixed with the lemon, it was kind of like astringent. It wasn't quite too pleasant. It was nice, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But on her skin, it passed that weird puberty stage, and it was immediately one of the most beautiful lemon fragrances I have ever smelled. It was so nice. So I would definitely say if cypress is one of those notes on your skin that just doesn't seem to work, sample this and give it a chance, because once it does kind of open up completely and everything settles down and dries down, it is a ridiculously gorgeous, very beautiful lemon fragrance. I really enjoyed that. I liked how it wasn't too sweet. I liked the balance of all the other notes with the citrus. It was really, really beautiful, and I can see the hype around the fragrance and the love around this fragrance. But on my skin, because cypress pulls way too weird on my skin, that was just one of the notes that just, it took a lot of time to develop. On my mom, it was almost instantaneous. So I gave her, after I sampled it, I had a bunch left in my atomizer, a decent amount left. I gave it to her because it just smelled so beautiful on her, and she really enjoyed it, and she was considering buying a bottle of it because it was so nice. So I'm going to give you guys my final impressions of that fragrance. First and foremost, the longevity on it was really, really nice for a citrus fragrance. Sometimes citrus fragrances only last 4 hours on my skin. This one actually lasted closer to 6, which is really, really good. And it had pretty decent sillage, considering as a citrus fragrance. It was longer than arm's length, but it wasn't oppressive or heavy. It was very pleasant. So I would say this is a fragrance that could be definitely beautiful for the daytime and definitely professional appropriate. So if you were to work or school or the theater, I think you could definitely get away with wearing this fragrance. It's very safe. Might be a little bit too lemon and bright for the evening, but you can do whatever you want. There's no rules to fragrances. However, wherever, whenever, whatever. It's completely up to you. Those are just my recommendations. I don't know if I would purchase a bottle of this for me just because it took so long to develop on my skin, but it is definitely something I would consider buying for my mom. It just was so beautiful on her, and it smelled so nice and so fresh. So overall, this is a very fantastic fragrance. I really enjoyed it, and generally overall, even though it didn't work on my skin, it worked really well on my mom's skin, so I definitely would recommend sampling it. But it is really beautiful, and I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, guys, if you like my fragrance videos, remember to give this video a thumbs up. It lets me know to continue doing videos like this, and also don't forget to subscribe, because it's free. And I'm free, and I put out new videos every Monday through Friday, and sometimes on the weekends as well. So I'll always have something for you to watch. In any case, I hope you guys are all happy and healthy. Have a great day, month, year, whatever, and I'll see you next time. Bye!